All right, guys. I think we are ready to go here. We'll give folks a little bit of time to continue hopping on. Um, I had a fun little exercise, as always, working through some technical challenges to be expected, but we are here and we are ready for everybody. We'll just give a few more moments. Folks can get settled in. I think we're pretty much good to go. All right, I see it's dwindling down a little bit, so I'll go ahead and kick us off. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate everybody joining and listening in. My name is Cletus Kilker. I'm with Accelerate. I'm really excited about our conversation today with a couple of our experts here that you see on screen. I'll introduce them shortly. Just a little bit about me. I've been fortunate to be entrenched in the automation and AI world for the last 6.5 years with Accelerate. And I'm the director of sales for our healthcare and life sciences division. Today, we're going to be talking about a major bottleneck in the healthcare provider space, specifically pharmacy prior authorization. We're going to talk about some of the challenges at length here, but we'll do our best to protect everybody's time. We're going to ask some questions here to our experts, and we're going to be doing a demo of an agentic solution that addresses these challenges that we're seeing quite a bit of. So why prior authorization in pharmacy? About four key trends that we're seeing that are creating a lot of challenges. These are pretty common across most process or workflow that we have in the healthcare and pharmacy and provider space. A big one, of course, is staffing overload. Staff is just very overwhelmed these days. There's more work often than there are people, and there's a lot of different complexities that cause delays, that cause additional work that really often is unnecessary. And prior auth teams, pharmacists, techs, they're all kind of drowning in the rising volume and also the increasing complexity of drug requirements. That's a big one for us that we're seeing a lot. Also, payer variability. Every payer, often every plan, has its own rules and portals and forms and documentation standards. These complexities create a lot of additional manual work as well. Compliance pressure, of course, compliance is always pretty key in anything that we're doing here. Payer criteria, regulations, they change frequently. Missing just one lab note, it can trigger a denial even when the therapy is clinically appropriate. So this causes more work. And then the last one here, it causes more delays, right? And delays are something we want to try to avoid at all costs. So in short, we're going to be talking about these areas, these challenges with our guests here. The PA process as a whole, it's fragmented, it's very manual, and it's really stretching humans, staff, far beyond what they have time for. And it's not just about efficiency, of course. It's about protecting patient access and really building sustainable pharmacy operations. So with that, I'm going to have Ford and Tone here introduce themselves, and then we will kick it off with some questions, and then we'll show you guys that demo. Go ahead, Ford.
Thanks, Cletus. I'm Ford Crosby. I am Senior Automation Architect with Accelerate. I've been in the automation side of IT for the last 10 years, and I've been with Accelerate for the last 5, building lately primarily healthcare agentic automations.
Awesome. Go ahead, Tone.
Hi, my name is Tone Ajiboye. I'm an RPA AI analyst, automation analyst here at Accelerate. I've been with Accelerate for about 2 years now, and building different processes, all in healthcare as well.
Great. Well, we appreciate you guys being on this panel today as the experts. So Ford, I am going to start with you. I guess maybe you drew the short straw. You have lived inside prior authorization and and RCM environments for years. Can you paint a clear picture of what we call the invisible workload, the invisible workload behind prior authorization, what that actually looks like day to day?
Invisible workload, sure. I think you started speaking to it a little bit in your introduction. It's essentially death by 1,000 clicks. And the invisible workload, it's not really one big task. It's a constant friction of micro tasks. All the different payers, so many different portals. These are different websites that you're constantly logging in and out of, all with different requirements. You're digging constantly, spending hours through the EHR, EMR systems, looking for specific lab results, diagnosis dates, etc. And you get this context switching, right? So you're jumping between phone calls and faxes and different screens, and it just kills cognitive focus. So you're constantly chasing and ending up, following up on one prior auth by portal, maybe by email or telephone, trying to see if the status has changed, and it just begins to weigh on an individual.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's a lot of the feedback that we hear across the board. Little follow-up question for you, Ford. What's the one task or part of the process that seems to drain teams the most, but never shows up on dashboards or in the KPIs that are measured? What might be that one thing?
I guess it may be one task, or maybe one kind of group of tasks that I would say would be the translation and mediation loop, right? So dashboards, they track turnaround times, they track approval rates, they track volume, but they rarely track intensity of effort that's required to bridge the communication gap that you have that is between provider, payer, and patient. And that's the mediation that these employees have to constantly do. And it's a burden. So data entry, that's repetitive, and that's a problem, but we solve that. And it's something that we shouldn't be doing as individuals, and because computers can do data entry easily. Scavenger hunt for clinical documentation, it's tedious, time consuming. It's also something we work to eliminate. But this translation mediation process is really problematic because it has the highest cognitive load. Your pharmacist or pharmacy tech isn't just moving paper; they're negotiating between all the players in this process, and they have to speak, to doctors, and they have to speak insurance language and medical language, and all while translating patients to an angry customer who's standing at the counter. And this constant context switching, it causes severe mental fatigue, and it's something that dashboard metrics couldn't just don't capture.
Yeah, I like that you bring up the context switching, the task switching, the mental fatigue, very real things that I think we all experience, right? Especially in a higher pressure situation. All of that being said, okay, in terms of what do you start with first, right? All the folks here, we're probably pretty familiar with these challenges, but from the perspective of what to address first, if you had to pick one part of that prior authorization that automation absolutely must handle first, what would you say that would be?
I would have to say that you want to start at the beginning of the process. In this case, what we refer to as the intake and eligibility agent, I would say should be your starting point. We're going to talk about the various agents that work throughout the prior authorization process. But the intake and eligibility agent is a good starting point. It's a dependency to the rest of the workflow because it detects the trigger conditions, which are a prescription being received that requires prior authorization, and it launches the whole automated process. It handles some of the most tedious manual tasks that are required processing prior authorization. So eligibility search in each payer portal, benefit mapping from all the different portal formats, form prefill with the data that's pulled from EMR. So there's the data entry we talked about. So we generally recommend that a pilot automation would involve intake and eligibility for maybe one of your and maybe one other agent. I would say for your top 1 or 2 payers, and then also for your top 1 or 2 high impact drug classes. So you start small but effective. You stand that project up, and then you can scale from there.
That makes a lot of sense. Of course, we're talking about automation, specifically agentic automation. We're going to be showing you guys shortly one of the agents that we've built to address this. But I want to transition to compliance a little bit. So we're hearing that teams are really stretched thin, right? And when this happens, consistency becomes difficult, which can start to impact compliance. Ford, if you could talk a little bit of how this affects compliance and documentation accuracy, I think that would be great feedback.
Most denials, I would say, they're not clinical. They're missing info denials, right? They're just little technicalities. And part of the issue here is that each payer has these different requirements with respect to documentation, order of the documentation, the format of the documentation. And there can be a lot of it, and it's difficult to keep it all straight. Obviously, it can be tedious. It can be mind-numbing at best. And you add to that the time pressure that people are under with huge workloads, and staff have to scramble to assemble these packets. They're being pressed from all sides. So errors are just inevitably going to result when it all falls on the human beings. You see it in the form of missing notes, incorrect or missing lab values, some outdated forms, and failing to meet formatting guidelines that, you simply really, it's just an issue you wouldn't have with automation. Intelligent automation makes the vast majority of the problem go away because the agents, they're immune to stress. They don't make mistakes, and they don't have memory lapses. You just get standardized, complete decision-ready packets provided to you when you need to make a decision. And the human relationships and expertise can then be focused on the complex cases where they're actually needed to make nuanced decisions. And they get to do it with pre-filled forms, pre-assembled packages in the right order, and they're all prepared for them without any errors or omissions. It's night and day for the people responsible for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome, and that's what we're seeing, right? The using the technology the right way, from RPA bots to intelligent agents, really kind of getting to that outcome we're looking for. But we even see with experienced teams, right? It's even hard to keep documentation consistent. Can you summarize quickly why that is, right? From your experience, why is it so hard to keep prior authorization documentation consistent, even on those teams that have a lot of experience?
Yeah, you asked why we summarize that. So it's hard because the goalposts keep moving. Even great teams struggle because you have all the whims of the payers. Requirements are changing constantly and often without notice. You have a rush factor when volume's really high. Staff are obviously, like I mentioned before, they're rushing to submit and leading to small errors. Human variance. So if you don't have a rigid template, 3 different people will assemble a packet 3 different ways. And you get cognitive overload. Fatigue sets in, and in the 50th case of the day, you're going to have details that get mixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And Ford, you've clearly shown why consistency matters. We're going to transition to Tone. And Tone, let's talk about the bigger picture, right? We're talking about all the challenges Ford touched on, for the technology side of how it can address some of these. But how do we redesign the entire prior authorization lifecycle so that it scales across multiple payers and drug classes?
Yeah, first of all, I would say it's crucial to understand that prior authorization isn't one single big task. It's really a chain of distinct phases, and trying to automate it with a single tool often fails because it doesn't respect that complexity. So I would say this is where a modular approach comes in. We see the future of a PA as a four-agent automation model. So instead of one, let's assume one big giant workflow, we break prior authorization into four intelligent components or agents that work together. So first off, we have the intake and the eligibility agent. So for this agent, it's his job to detect when a PA is needed right at the start, verify the patient's benefits, and understand the payer's specific rules. So the second agent here is the clinical evidence assembly agent. I would say this agent is brilliant at digging through the EHR to find the exact clinical notes, the lab results, and even therapy history that the payer needs to see. It then packages it up into like a concise payer-focused justification. Now, the third agent here is the submission and decisioning agent. So this one takes that perfect package and it submits it through the best channel, whether it's a portal or API or even fax. And then it monitors for like a decision in real time. So the final agent here is the fulfillment and lifecycle oversight agent. This one takes over once approval is received. It ensures the medication is dispensed, manages financial clearance, and even keeps an eye on when reauthorizations are due. So in overall, each agent handles a specific stages extremely well. This model, I would say, allows for very high automation coverage across the entire process while keeping the human in the loop for critical oversight and even complex judgment calls. The beauty of this, organizations don't have to boil the ocean. The beauty of this, organizations don't have to boil the ocean. You can start small, maybe with just one payer and one drug class, prove the value, and then scale across all your payers, drugs, and even pharmacy workflows. So the result, I would say, is exactly what we're all aiming for. We want fast decisions for patients. We want fewer frustrating denials. We want stronger compliance, and even a significant reduction in staff burnout.
That's perfect, and I love that. Right, one automation solution, multiple agents, right, working with bots, working with the people, with humans, to get to that outcome faster, more streamlined, more accurate. That's a great description. Tone, what makes modular automation more scalable compared to traditional RPA only approaches that we've seen for the last several years?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say it gets to the heart of why older automation approaches have struggled. For example, the traditional RPA is fundamentally task oriented. So it's great at automating structured, repetitive tasks like logging into a portal, filling out forms, copying and pasting, but it's also brittle. So if a payer changes the layout of their website, the RPA bot breaks and have to reprogram it so it doesn't understand context. But our modular agentic model is different because it's process oriented and intelligent. So these agents don't just mimic clicks, they interpret data, they understand payer rules, and can adapt. For example, the clinical evidence agent, it uses AI to semantically extract relevant information from unstructured clinical notes, something a simple RPA bot cannot do. But the biggest factor for scalability is the modularity itself. So with RPA only systems, you often have to build like a completely separate monolithic automation for every single payer, which is a massive undertaking. But with our four agent model, you can scale piece by piece. You can start by implementing the intake and eligibility agent for your highest volume payer. Once that is running smoothly, then you can add the clinical evidence agent. Then you can configure the existing agents for a new payer rather than starting from scratch. So this start small and scale approach is far more manageable, less risky, and allows organizations to build momentum and see returns much faster.
Perfect. And you mentioned starting small and having a very clear approach to how do we get, early wins, starting small, but that doesn't mean low impact, right? We're seeing that these have a very high impact in terms of increased productivity, getting more work done, accuracy, all of those things. That being said, what KPIs or early wins would you say that pharmacy leaders should expect in the first 90 days or so of adopting this type of model?
So in the first 90 days, the focus is typically on a pilot phase to validate the approach. This usually involves launching the first two agents, the intake and eligibility and clinical evidence acquisition, for one high impact drug case and one single payer. So the early wins and KPIs we advise leaders to track are very tangible. First of all, you should see a significant reduction in the manual workload. Look at the percentage of cases that are automatically fulfilled by the intake agent. A good target to aim for is, I would say, over 80%. So secondly, you see an improvement in the quality of your submissions. You can measure this by tracking the clinical evidence completeness rate. That is how often the package sent to the payer has the required information on the first try. So these two things lead directly to the most important outcomes. We expect clients to see 10 to 20 uplift in the first pass approval rates and between 20 to 40% reduction in the overall PA processing time. Fewer information related denials and even faster approvals mean you're saving a tremendous amount of staff time, but more importantly, you're getting patients in therapy days, even weeks sooner.
Awesome. Some very compelling potential there, right? Some compelling stats and impact. In theory, this is great, right? We're fortunate we get to see it every day, and seeing is believing. So that being said, can we walk through how these agents actually work together in real time?
Sure. Yes, let's follow a real case. Well, I'll be showing a real case from start to finish as an intelligent agent handles the PA lifecycle. We'll see how a PA is detected and how the evidence is gathered and packaged, and how the system manages the submission and decision, all while keeping the human in the loop.
And while you load the demo, I'll just address, we mentioned the 4 agents as part of this solution. Of course, we're going to be focusing on the one that Tone just described here. Won't be enough time to go through all 4, but she'll walk us through one of them, and I think she's about ready.
Yes, just get it there. All right, can you see the demo?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so here at the bottom, we'll log in and extract all the PA patient's information for the EMR app, and it's extracting the case ID, the patient name, drug name, diagnosis, code pair, the name created, and let me just make sure I pause on this so I can talk more about it. 1 second. Sorry, I apologize. It's moving a little bit slow.
That's just the beauty of doing demos, right?
Yes, it is. So in this initial stage is where the bot is extracting all the prior authorization patient's information from the EMR application. It's extracting the case ID, the patient name, the drug name, the diagnosis code, the payer name, and the created date. And the next stage is the RPA bot also collecting all the details pulled from the EMR app to prepare a structured set of information that the agent can use and understand. Now we do have a decision point here where the bot is trying to figure out whether, like, we have a decision point asking if there are any pending cases. If yes, then the bot proceeds to the next step. If no, then bot sends an exception email. So the next stage here is where the agent takes the structured information. Let me. Sorry about it being a little bit slow, but
It's a lot faster than manual, though.
yes, it is. All right. So this is where the agent is reviewing the extracted information from that the RPA bot extracted, and then it produces a set of helpful outputs, a completeness score, a summary of the clinical evidence, the payer-ready justification, and the checklist status, and a record of where the information is coming from. So all these outputs are provided as text. And then the agent displays a case summary along with the key details, the clinical evidence, payer justification, a checklist, and a record of where the information came from. So after reviewing this, that's when the human decides whether to approve or decline. Now here we can see the agent has already created the clinical evidence summary. Let me click on play. The case ID, the patient name, the drug name, the diagnosis code, the payer name, the urgency, and the completeness score. So I would talk on this. Let me talk on this for a little bit. So as we can see here, the completeness score is 90%. So this looks good. So let's let the bot do its thing. All right, so this is the checklist status. So right here, we can see that we do have one incomplete record for the disease activity score. So in this case, the agent has generated the clinical evidence summary, the payer aligned justification, and the checklist status. So as you can see, in the checklist status, the agent could not find the disease in available records. So in this case, it will be marked as incomplete, and only checklist status file will be generated. So the user will get to know what exactly is missing. So the RPA bot then gathers all the text inputs, saves them as files, and then places those files in a secure online storage location. Let me unpause it. That is the RPA bot saving it into a text file. So here we have the RPA bot creating and updating the daily report in Excel. And if any cases were handled that day, it sends the report by email. Now it's checking to see if there are any other cases in the queue items to process. If yes, the agent will again calculate the completeness score and other file content. If no, then RPA bot will send an exception to the user email. Now, agents is now moving from, the last one to the next queue item. All right. So yes, so that is it for the life cycle with that involves the RPA, the agent, and the human in the loop.
Awesome. Very, very good demo. It looks so quick and simple, right? But it does mirror what real staff do. But we're handing a lot of that work that would have taken a significant amount of time from staff, and we're giving that to bots and agents to get that outcome, that output that they're working so hard to get to. So the time savings, the accuracy, it's all very compelling. More consistent, I think, is key as well. Tone, what does adoption typically look like for organizations starting this journey?
Well, that's the goal. And I would say consistency and reliability at scale. So the adoption journey is designed to be pragmatic and build on successes, not to be a massive disruptive project. It follows a clear phased roadmap. So it starts with a baseline assessment. We work with the organization to capture their current benchmarks. How long does it take a PA, does it take a PA? What's the first pass approval rate? Where are the bottlenecks? So this helps us define the success criteria. The next is the pilot phase, which I mentioned earlier. It starts small and focused, and typically the first two agents for one payer and one drug class. So this is where we prove the value and build confidence in the system, tracking those early KPIs and demonstrating the ROI. So from there, we move to the expansion phase. We activate the other two agents, submission and fulfillment, for that initial group. Then we begin methodically expanding to more payers and more drug classes, building on the foundation from the pilot. So finally, we reach the scaling, where the solution is rolled out enterprise wide with unified dashboards and governance. So I would say throughout the entire journey, a strong governance framework is key. This isn't about replacing people, it's about elevating them to focus on complex clinical judgments and patient care. The system is designed with human in the loop controls, audit trails for every action, and clear exception routing, ensuring that pharmacy team is always in command.
Awesome. I love how you said the point is to elevate the work that everyone's doing, right? To get to those outcomes quicker, to get them closer to the patient and away from some of this work that can be very daunting, very tedious. Thank you for all of that input, Tone. So everybody, today we unpacked the real challenges behind prior authorization. Not a lot new there, but that point is that it's very real and folks are still really struggling with these things. And there's a big opportunity for transformation, leveraging what we've just shown you, right? RPA bots working with agents, working with people to streamline this and really transform how this process is done. We saw how the invisible workload can lead to burnout. It can affect compliance and how compliance breaks down, and really how modular agentic automation can fill those gaps very effectively and very real. The future of prior authorization is clear, right? Faster decisions, fewer denials, which is very key, less labor, less manual labor, and more focus on patient care. So I hope that was insightful for everybody. Thank you again for